Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Since crude oil replaced agriculture as Nigeria's major export revenue earner, the nation's cocoa industry has continued to struggle to return to its pride of place in the global market. With lack of data on the industry and modern cocoa plantations, it may remain this way for many more years. Joining us this morning is chocolate entrepreneur who will be speaking on the cocoa local value chain, Sanne Steemers. Good morning. Welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
So let's start off with where the introduction left off. Obviously, you missed the halcyon days of the 70s, well, 50s, 60s, up until the 70s, when Nigeria was the second largest importer of cocoa, and you are having to make do with a less than ideal situation. Can you describe the challenges that you're facing?
Yeah, to be honest, the situation in cocoa has really gotten much more challenging in recent years. When I first arrived in Nigeria about 5 years ago, Nigeria was still in the top 5 cocoa producing countries. Now it's number 7 or 8. Latest figures have not come out yet. So the volumes are really decreasing, and there's a lot of challenges in the sector, both in terms of quantity and quality. So we're trying to work with that.
I'm sure before you started, you would have done a feasibility study. Why did you choose Nigeria?
I actually ended up here by accident on a short-term consultancy assignment, which was supposed to be a few months, and that's now about 5 years ago. I chose to stay here because I like the energy of Nigeria. It doesn't necessarily always make sense, but it's just a lot of fun and there's a lot of opportunity.
You talk about quantity and quality, but when you look at the global market share, Africa accounts for a lot of cocoa being exported. But in market value, about $100 billion annually from chocolates, Africa still gets about 5% of that. So what else are we doing wrongly?
Yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity to process chocolate into, or cocoa into chocolate locally, because it does create a lot of value in terms of GDP. So we are working on that, which is also one of the reasons why we started a small chocolate factory in Surulere. So we've been making chocolate for the past 2 years. There are a few other chocolate makers that have popped up. There's a lot of plants that process cocoa into cocoa butter and cocoa powder these days. So there's a lot of local value addition that has started kicking off, but it's not that easy. The previous guest that you had already mentioned the ease of doing business in this country, and there's a few challenges that we all have to struggle with. It's easier to just export the cocoa because it doesn't spoil, nothing happens to it, compared to manufacturing and processing, which requires electricity, trained staff, and all that.
So where do you source your cocoa, and can you walk us through the process from bean to bar?
Yeah, sure. So our company is called 36 Foods, which is a reference to 36 states of Nigeria. So what we aim to do is source our ingredients from all different states. Cocoa grows in about 14 states, and then there's other ingredients that we add to our chocolate. So we buy cocoa generally straight from the farmers, because that gives us most control over the quality. So we work with farmers, we train them on how to harvest properly, how to process properly, because that's actually how you get most of the flavor out, contrary to just sitting in Lagos and hoping for somebody to bring it to you. So we have a few farmers in Cross River, Edo State, Ogun, Osun. I think that's most of it for now. And yeah, we work with them. There's one women's cooperative in Cross River State that we're engaging with and that we're trying to get the quality up, which has a huge quality potential in terms of bean-to-bar chocolate. It's really awesome. I think that one can compete very well with international chocolates as well. And you can see chocolate actually is just like wine to some extent, or coffee, or any other natural product. Its flavor depends on the soil, on the variety of the tree, and then on the way you process it. So basically your second question, how do you process it? So what we do is we take the cocoa from the farmer. So the farmer harvests, ferments and dries the cocoa, which has to happen immediately. Then we take it to Lagos, and then we take it through the entire process of hand-picking the right beans, roasting them, grinding them, adding all the different ingredients, and then packaging them into beautiful chocolate bars and other shapes.
Well, you're an expatriate finding your foot in Nigeria. How would you describe the experience so far?
It's been interesting, actually. Before coming to Nigeria, I had been going back and forth between Africa and Europe for about 12 years, but I had always refused to come to Nigeria because its reputation is of a very dangerous country. And I always said, no, I can go to any place in Africa, but I'm not going to Nigeria. But then an opportunity came up and I decided to take it. It's an interesting journey, and I felt at home here, and I felt very welcome here since I first came. People are very open. It's much easier to make Nigerian friends in Nigeria than it is to make local friends in some of the other countries that I've lived in. People are very open and motivated. People are willing to work. So I feel comfortable. I feel at home.
Great.
There's a rhetoric about cocoa farmers and how much they earn in this entire chain, which again leaves up to about $100 billion annually in chocolate. Last time you were on the show in our Papa studio, you did mention that the cocoa shell makes for perfect fertilizer, and you would like to take that back to the farmers. How far have you gone with that? That's one. But let me also ask you, in this era of healthier snacking, is the chocolate industry affected? And how are you keeping up with that?
Let me start with your first question. So in terms of bringing the cocoa waste back to the farmers, we are collecting it, and we are liaising with one of our farmers who's closest to us in Ogun State. To be honest, there are some logistical challenges in physically bringing the shells back to the farm, because the cost in doing that is actually quite high. But that one is definitely in progress, and I would love to continue working on that. Mm-hmm. Your second question in terms of health, cocoa is actually very healthy. It's the sugar that's not healthy. Mm-hmm. So in terms of people trying to pick healthy options for their diet, I think I can only recommend pick a dark chocolate. It's a bit of an acquired taste. Some people have to get used to it because sugary tastes are more easily accessible. But once you learn to appreciate the darker chocolates, there's actually not a health issue associated with it.
So does 36 chocolate make dark chocolates only, or all of us? What do you make?
No, we do have a different range of products because people are free to choose what they like. So we make anything from dark chocolate to white chocolate. The white chocolate being the sweetest one, the dark chocolate being the most acquired taste, which has a lot of the real cocoa flavor in it. And we make all of them. If health is your concern, pick the darker ones. If you just want a nice snack, there's nothing wrong with it. We're all allowed to treat ourselves every now and then. So.
Where can we buy your chocolates, and how are you gearing up for Valentine's Day?
We have partnered with a lot of chefs and bakeries. So most of them actually take our chocolate and use it in their cakes. One of them was my friend Alex, who was also here with me last time in Apapa. So you can work through different bakeries. We have a website where we list all our products and sales channels as well. So I think that would be a good starting point. We're trying to be quite active on Instagram to also show the journey, because it's a constantly growing business.
All right, the Nigerian government is trying to encourage our youth to go into entrepreneurship. Tell us how you transitioned from being a corporate person, a career woman who worked as a managerial consultant in multinationals, to being an entrepreneur.
I think entrepreneurship for me is the most amazing thing that has ever happened. I wouldn't go back into employment. I love the flexibility. I love the opportunity. I am very happy that I have my foundation of a few years of corporate experience. And for anyone who wants to get into entrepreneurship, I would recommend at least try and get a few years work experience in a more structured environment, so that at least you understand how things operate. From there, it has kind of gone step by step. I started working for large multinationals, then started working for a smaller trading company, then became a freelance consultant, just doing small projects to now being a real entrepreneur who's employing other people. So it's a bit of a journey, and just take it step by step. Make sure you get all the experience. Make sure you have the right people. What has been really important to me is also to have my business partner on board. I think being an entrepreneur on your own is really difficult because you tend to get stuck in your own way of thinking. So having somebody who is different from you and can bring additional expertise is awesome. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Who is your business partner? An expatriate like you or a Nigerian?
No, my business partner is a Nigerian, and he's a creative. He's a fashion designer by training. I'm more of the nerd. So we work very well together. Okay. So we work on the chocolate together, and then we're also doing a social enterprise in fashion together.
You didn't give us the details for your website and your Instagram handle.
I was just about to ask.
Yes, of course. It's my36chocolates.ng is the website, and just my36chocolates is all our social media handles: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Well, thank you very much. We do wish you all the best. How many people are you employed? How many people did you employ so far?
We have 3 people now on our payroll, and we're currently recruiting for 1 more.
Great.
How do you give back to the Nigerian society? What corporate responsibility have you been involved in?
I think for me the most important thing is to make sure that our staff gets well paid. We had an interesting discussion about minimum wage, which doesn't concern me because all my staff is already well above that level. But yeah, pay your people well, but also train them, give them the responsibility and actually the opportunity to grow and to develop themselves in a way that they might not have done otherwise. So work with staff, treat people decently, focus on long-term relationships, not short-term gain. And I think in that way you can have a proper contribution to this society as an entrepreneur.
Well, we do wish you the best as we count down to that February 14th date, Valentine.
Thank you.